Welcome to I've Seen Things. I'm Taja.
And I'm Amy.
And we're here to talk about logistics, safety, and just have a bit of a chat. And Amy's running the show today, so what are we chatting about?
I thought we'd take a little bit of a different lens or focus and look at some of the influences that are on our televisions. In the way of TV series. So, for you and me, we're of the same generation. Mm-hmm. So we grew up with shows like Home Improvement, starring Tim Allen. And the heartthrob, Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
He was a favourite.
Yes. But we're not going to go talking about him too much, otherwise it'll fluster me.
Okay.
But anyway, and there's other shows that whether or not you think you're influenced or getting subliminally messaged about safety in any way, shows like my brother watched, like Bob the Builder. Can we fix it? Yes, we can.
I was too busy watching Brum.
Oh, car safety. There you go.
There was nothing safe about that car.
There wasn't, see?
He was sentient. Running around town all on his own. He was the first self-driving car.
He was. Oh, bro.
I love
anyway. So there's shows like this, like The Block. We were just having a look before, and The Block has been running on Australian television screens for 19 years. 19 whole years.
But they're not in... They did have a break in the middle there, didn't they? Because didn't it start on Channel 7 and now it's on Channel 9 or something? Or the other way around?
Oh, could have been the other way around. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
We're not into it enough to know.
And I stopped watching after the third or fourth season because it became all about the drama between the contestants and not actually about the contest itself and the renovations and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not interested in this. So this is why I don't watch game shows. I don't care about who's fighting with who. I just want to see the reveal.
No. So, of course, Home Improvement, for a long time when I was a kid, and then when I rewatched it, I actually thought Tool Time and Home Improvement were two separate shows. Yeah. Because...
I don't know what to say to that.
And that's
Tool
okay.
Time was his show, but it was the show on the show. Yes?
Mind-blowing.
And
yes.
Oh my God. I don't even think that it wasn't. I think if Home Improvement was made today instead of in the 90s,
yes, go.
We bring everything forward to today. I think that you would probably find that they would have some form of social media element that was Tool Time.
Yes,
and then you have the show, and Tool Time is built into the show, but there's that social media element where it's today on Tool Time, but it's just a segment of.
Yes.
I think that's how they would run it today.
Like TikTok.
Back then that wasn't really how it went. It was just yeah.
Yeah, and there wasn't, when it was made, there was no social media, really.
Not really, no.
So yeah, you had maybe just a quick Google of this year to this year and the seasons, maybe, but that was it. So
no, I don't think you even had Google when it first came out. It was in the 90s. They were still wearing the first season because, I love that show.
I know.
I love that show.
I know. So,
we recently found it on one of our streaming services. I think it might be Disney. Yeah, Disney. And we watched all of it.
Yeah.
We watched it start to finish. It's same as when I found The Nanny on Stan. I watched all of it because it's just pure nostalgia, and I will never get past Miles. He was my favourite character. He's so dry and sassy. I love him. But, we completely rewatched all of the Home Improvement episodes, and when you watch that very first season, it is very late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's a transition of, oh God, is that what they're wearing?
Oh God, why is anyone still wearing that? And then you're like, wait, that was what they wore. Jill came out in that heavily embroidered vest.
Yeah.
And I think it was dogs or cats or something, and it was just very kitsch.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is she wearing?
A lot of what Roseanne was doing.
Yes. And I think that they were filmed around about the same sort of time now. See, now I want to know when it started, Home Improvement.
I think it was 89, 90?
91.
Oh, okay. Close.
So yeah, it was very late 80s, early 90s, because that 91 isn't quite... It was like just as the 80s fashion was starting to die. So that would explain why she was wearing that god-awful vest.
It was
the early 90s.
It was a lot.
Like, yeah.
It was a lot for the senses.
It was a lot. So 91 to 1999. Didn't even make 2000. So that would be why there's like so much 90s nostalgia with that show, because it was literally just the 90s.
Well, that's the thing. And I think what made it, or part of what it made it was heartwarming. It was about family. It was coming off the back of, dare I say it, The Cosby Show. So we had the Hustables, and then...
I don't think I ever watched that.
I did.
I don't think I did.
And then we had the Taylors. And so a very relatable family that had an idiot for a dad / husband.
A good friend that was always willing to come around and dig him out of whatever hole he'd managed to throw himself into or blow himself up in.
There's Al, who's the more safety conscious sidekick type character.
Yeah, the one that had a brain but was,
that was put down upon quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't like cutting corners, wanted to do the job right, wanted to fix and do the thing, like complete the job. That was his...
And do it with the tools he had available, whereas Tim Taylor was always like, we're going to add some manpower. Yeah. And then he'd like ramp up the engine so it was like 5 times more powerful than was needed. And
more power!
And it's like everything gets destroyed because there's too much power for the job. And then Al's in the corner going, it's mine.
Yeah.
It's all done.
yeah. And it would be finished and it'd be like...
and it'd be beautiful.
Yeah, it would. It'd be beautiful. So whether or not you were conscious of watching a show like Home Improvement that brought laughs, that brought soul and family dynamics and problems. And
the time he nearly set his house on fire because he was in that Christmas light competition with his neighbour. They're like
Dr. Bob
spotlights.
Don
like
Johnson
blinding, and they're like, oh my god, I'm blind.
Yeah. But the legs,
like hairs on end because he's been electrocuted 4 times trying to do it.
The lengths Tim goes to prove himself wrong,
to outprove,
prove others, whatever.
Yeah, nobody's.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, he always has to prove himself the one that's right. Nobody else can be right if he said something, and even if he knows it's wrong, he will still argue.
Yeah,
it's like no, what I said is right, and everyone's like, no.
Because my dad, I think we've talked about this, was a tradie for all his life. So him seeing my dad watch that show and seeing Tim use a jigsaw, and he's got his hand in front of the jigsaw and he's trying,
and your dad's going, no. Visceral reaction. Can we turn this off now?
Like we're like going, like just recoiling in our seats, So I think even if your parents weren't in anything, even if they're do-it-yourself people at home, you have a level, you have a scale on you that can go, that doesn't seem safe.
Yeah. And generally, if Al wasn't doing it like that, most people's level went, that's wrong.
It's going to be wrong. It's going to be...
If Al's hand isn't being touched, if Al's got safety glasses on, or everyone's going, Tim's going to hurt himself again.
Yeah. He's going to have, like, his head stuck to a board. He's going to, like...
I remember that episode. Walking around with this thing on his head. Al's had to, like, cut the worst of it off because it was this massive sheet to start with. He couldn't even lift his head up.
So, there's teachings within that show beyond family dynamics and conflict resolution and all that stuff. There's that safety element, and whether or not you noticed or you didn't notice, whatever side of the wall you're on, or you're just looking at it as like, this is a good show, I like this show, and that's the base level, you were subliminally being taught a little bit about safety, whether you were conscious of it or not.
If Tim Allen did it like this, I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, like I still like bringing up the jigsaw thing and him going, wah, wah, you know, like around with his hand in front of it. I know I've never used a jigsaw to date yet, but
you wouldn't put your hand in front
I
of it
would
like
not
that.
put my hand in front of the jigsaw like that, you know, and more power up, just a normal lawnmower.
Oh,
For no
I remember
reason.
that episode, and they like caught him 2 counties over when the fuel finally
He's still
went out.
going. He's still going down the track. So, you know, it was sort of teaching both sort of sides of the coin. So you're at work, you know, on the job site, and you had the guys from, I think it was JCW construction, and they're coming and they, you know, talk about if you're up on the scaffold and you're not near, like, you know, microwave, this is how we'll heat up, you know, your toasted sandwich, and it'd be using
The heat gun.
gun, you know, and stuff like that. So there was.
Oh yeah, I like to cook my stew on the job site in my toolbox. I just take all my tools out and I give it a wipe down, and then I put my heat gun on the side and I grab his heat gun and I put it on because we've got to do 2 servings.
Yeah.
So he's like got it all, and I'm like, "You're cooking? How do you keep them?" From in my little kid brain,
Sure.
I went to, how did you keep the meat cool while you were working?
I know.
Like,
There's so many questions.
You've got food poisoning at this point.
The cheese sandwich was way too hot. Like, it was beyond boiling. And
Yeah, that was hilarious because
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, maybe you want to wait for a moment before you take a bite, Tim."
So, you know, you're getting safety tips or, you know, how-tos or how-not-tos in various forms without it being so in your face. Like a safety training video where they can be horrendously outdated and boring.
My favorite one at the moment, my favorite thing to find at the moment, is voice actors on TikTok that are talking about stuff in there. They don't actually get told all the time what they're talking about, or they do get told because obviously they've got to talk about it, but they don't understand it, and it's hilarious when you see the ones that have to do the safety training. Like, they've been hired to do the safety training videos, and they're reading it and they're doing the acting, but then you understand why they're so boring because they're looking at the camera and they'll like pause the acting, like the recording for a moment, and they'll look at the camera TikTok and be like, what does that mean? What am I talking about? What is this? What am I recording for? I don't understand any of it. And then one of them, I shit you not, one of them that did it, I had just gone through a safety training video for the same thing they were talking about, and I remembered sections of it.
Oh, wow.
It was a different actor. So I'd say it was like they were recording for America, and like I've just been through the Australian version of it, but the language she was using in that, and I was sitting there going, I've just had to do that training. Oh my God. And she's like, I don't know what any of this is. What does that word mean?
And that's the thing. Like, how much is it sinking in if you are doing some of these very important training videos when they are really outdated, or the person, like Tasha said, got no idea what they're saying anyway, and they're being paid to do a thing, and that's not their field. They don't know.
Well, of course it's not their field. They're a voice actor.
Nothing's their field.
Except voice acting.
So I guess the question that I was sort of thinking with this episode was, what's the influence of generations that have watched this or have been introduced to it? So we were all there when it aired, you know, at the time, or we've revisited it recently and rewatched it and still get the same goodness out of the show. So people that find it on Disney, Home Improvement I'm talking about at the moment, we'll get to Bob the Builder in a minute. Tasha's never watched.
I've seen like tiny little bits. It wasn't a show that was heavily encouraged in my childhood.
Yeah.
I don't think that it had anything to do with the fact that he was building things. I think my mum just found it annoying. It was the constant, can we fix it?
Yes, like, please. Can. You have to finish it. You can't leave me hanging. You gotta say, can we fix it? And then just leave it.
I think the biggest Bob the Builder takeaway I have is that song that they did that was set to Mambo No. 5.
Oh, God, yes.
It's like the biggest thing I had on that was because everyone was playing it at school. Teenagers.
Yeah, so... so seeing 8 seasons, so it went for 8 years Home Improvement.
Yeah.
So you had many a version of Tim
hurting himself.
He
was on a first name basis with everyone in the emergency room. I remember that, like when he had to take someone else to the emergency room, and they're like, "What have you done now?" And he's like, "Not me this time, him." And they're like, "Well, that's a change."
He just was waving like the Queen.
Yeah,
like hello everyone. Hi. And it's sort of like that father knows best in both worlds, him at work and him at home.
Yep, and then like all of his kids paying out on him because they're like, "Dad, should we ring the ambulance before you start?"
Yeah. Don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing, Tim. But I think looking at that and the influence that, you know, safety at the time in the 90s, especially in Australia, was still up and coming. There was still a lot of stuff that needed a lot of addressing. And I remember when we moved over from NZ in 97, end of 96. So, yeah. I remember Dad going onto building sites and there was still lots of things that, you know, there's lots of death happening, people falling off roofs. And he was doing big projects like the Gold Coast Convention Centre. So there's like a couple of deaths on that side alone. But that was one construction site. And I mean, the Gold Coast was lit up with cranes. Like hectic construction was happening in the 90s. So
yeah, because that was one of their major boom periods, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a crane. Not that you'd throw rocks at cranes. Not suggesting that, but...
Yeah, they throw them back.
Don't annoy crane drivers. So, yeah, I'm just wondering the influence and the consciousness becoming increasingly focused on the safety on building sites. The general safety of workers, just in any sort of work that you do, was helped, not saying solely on Home Improvement, because there's lots of different types of these shows. There's The Block, there's changing rooms, there's property guys, there's Flip It or Flop It or whatever the hell that's called.
Flip or Flop.
Yeah, that's the one.
Fixer Upper, Good Bones.
Oh my gosh. There's so many different
Hometown
versions of construction, renovation type shows that, again, whether or not they're blatantly saying about safety, they're still doing it in such a way that you're seeing it. You're seeing it done safely.
Yes, they're talking about like the renovation or the project, but you still see them walking around with the safety glasses and the boots and the...
Yeah, and the high vis, or you've got to, you know...
Or the helmets when they need them.
Yeah. And, you know, you've got the foreman, especially on the block, you know, coming in at real
Keith.
Pivotal...
Is that his name?
I think it is. I feel like it is.
Because like, it's been the same foreman for all the seasons. Like, that's never changed.
No. Keith, the foreman, comes in at pivotal moments and can't do that because of these reasons, you know.
Yeah, and sometimes he doesn't even bother explaining it. He just walks in and goes, "You're not doing it. I'm the foreman. If you want to be on the show, deal."
Yeah. It's like he's like dropped tool, like I'm out.
Yeah, I feel like in those cases, though, he's had the discussion with them behind the scenes and said, this is why you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't seem like a... Mind you, again, I've only watched a few seasons of it, so maybe
Me too.
But from what I've seen, the little clips I've seen, he doesn't seem like someone who's, like, irrational or, like, just lives in an angry bubble, but I think he just has very little time for people that make it hard. Or are going out of their way to... like disregard the instructions given.
And keeping in mind with The Block, for anyone that hasn't seen it,
he's got to keep 5 teams safe.
Yeah, and these people, most of them have never done this before.
No.
Not renovated, DIY'd, touched a tool. There might be the odd bod tradie that's like in the
Part
team,
of the team, yeah.
You know, that's entered this competition, if you want to call it that. But majority of them, so they are just thinking up a thing, you know, going, that's a good idea.
Yep.
But they've got no concept about what actually that looks like in the way of building a room or fixing up a room within that house.
Yeah, getting from the idea to the result.
Yes, without input from our good mate Keith.
Or
other
contractors or something.
Contractor on site.
Because, I mean, there was... I can't remember, but I'm sure it was a couple of years ago that he shut down one of the teams entirely because their contractors weren't behaving properly on site.
Yeah.
And he just went, piss off.
Yeah.
You're not doing any work until your contractors are sorted out.
Yeah.
And I think they had to go like 2 or so weeks without finishing a room. And then they had to play catch up.
Ugh. You're not winning. No one's winning.
I don't think anyone wins on that show. The emotional stress of being on that show.
I think it'd break you. But, so you've got multiple different versions of safety things. So my whole point to this is whether or not you're conscious of it or not, you're seeing people either doing the right thing or there's a complete juxtaposition of someone that's doing the wrong thing, like Tim Allen. And then you've got Al Borland, his sidekick, wants to do the right thing, wants to do the job right, complete the job in a timely manner, not really stuff around with any who's its or what's its or add-ons or anything. And it's portraying in a really fun way, which I think is the best way.
Fun to view, yeah.
Fun to view rather than a really boring safety video of what can go wrong if you're a cowboy like Tim.
I feel like maybe
don't
you
have
should
a
go
risk
into
matrix in your own brain.
So maybe you should talk to like your bosses about putting together like an Australian sitcom safety video program, so that people can watch it and be like, and then at the end of the video, at the end of the episode, you can have like a little quiz, like last week you learnt this. Do you remember?
Yeah. Because it could be something like, we talk about it. Of good memories of the show. I remember when Tim stuck his head to the table and had to be cut out of the table with it. Weirdly enough, a jigsaw. So you're remembering the fail and why it failed.
Yeah.
To not do that
Although,
again.
to be fair, most people just remember the fail as Tim's an idiot.
That is the equal to. I understand that. That's generally the equal to. Tim Allen is an idiot. Or Tim Taylor, I should say. Sorry, that's his character name on the show. But, yeah, you've got a lot of interesting aspects with that show. And I think it helps having that lightheartedness,
it gives
the realness.
You something to refer back to when you're trying to explain things to people about why they shouldn't be doing it that way either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, okay, all right, Tim Taylor. How about we try it Al's way?
Because I think Al will get the job done every time.
And not require the medical bill at the end of it.
I just think, too, with America being how it is and with health insurance, not being a given, good Lord, I just can't even think about the bills that would come from that.
I've seen one
hospital. Recently
where a guy had something, I can't remember, it wasn't even something like that you would consider a major thing over here. Like over here in Australia, if you had the same thing and you were admitted to hospital for it, I think you'd be walking away with like your parking ticket and that'd be it.
Yeah.
Over there it was something like a $50,000 bill.
Yeah.
It's like, how?
Even the saline, bags.
Yeah.
The little banana bags and that have charged.
Everything's charged.
Yeah.
I recently saw a bill for a woman giving like birth, and they charged her for the skin-to-skin contact after birth, and I'm like, you're charging her for touching her own child. How do you do that? Skin-to-skin contact is where they put the newborn baby on the mum's chest. Pardon me. Whoa.
Ooh.
That was some feedback. Sorry about that. Skin-to-skin contact is where they put the baby on the mother's chest almost immediately after birth, right?
That requires an admin fee, apparently.
Apparently.
Wow.
Of $13.50 or something. And I'm like,
what? To pass your baby over? Wow.
Like, you could piss right off.
That's
I'll tell you what.
Ridiculous. Well, Tim's bills would be astronomical.
Oh, they would have been astronomical.
Wow. Okay.
That's probably why Jill was always wanting to find a better paying job.
Yeah. You just need to get out of this hole of money that you just keep sinking into.
Yep. Not to mention he had a very expensive hobby.
Fixing up hot rods. Yeah. They're pretty
Building
cool cars,
hot rods.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, like, when you change that with what is on sort of TV now, with all of those different sort of like HGTV shows and that, which the one I'm never going to understand is House Hunters.
Okay.
Because it's some of... I'm a dog walker and my partner's an artist and we have a budget of $2.7 million and I'm like, how? Can you explain what dogs you're walking?
Are you selling the dogs? Are you
What's
breeding the dogs?
What's happening here? How do you have $2.7 million budget? I don't understand. But it seems like that for all of them, so I will never understand that. So aside from that ludicrous show.
Yeah.
But, like, you watch them, and it's a big thing on social media now too, where people, like, you follow people that are doing the renovations on their properties. You follow the people that are... There's that whole controversy on TikTok and YouTube at the moment of the people that are flipping that house, and it's really... I'm a part of the majority that do not like what they're doing to the house, but that's their problem at the end of the day. So they've got these beautiful old homes that would be worth, like, the features in them are just stunning. And then they're modernizing it, but not in a way that most people would look at and be like, oh, that's nice. I could live there. That'd be really nice.
Yeah.
No, they're modernizing it in a way that everyone's sitting there going, what is wrong with you? It's like, so they've got two properties at the moment. One is theirs and one is the house that they're flipping to resell.
Yeah.
And people have problems with what they're doing to both of them.
Wow.
And I'm just like, you know what? If they're living in it, I don't care.
What?
It's their home, and I will be entirely honest. Like, if I put the renovations that I would do to certain homes up on media, and it was my home, like, I'm going to be living there, I'm not selling it on, I'm not renovating it to sell it.
Yeah.
Then I don't give a shit about your opinion. It's my home, and I'm the one who has to live in it, so It's fine. In that case, cool. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But the other house that they're doing specifically to sell. And all of the feedback on what they're doing is, why are you doing that? You're ruining it. Like, who are you going to sell it to if everyone's feedback is, ew?
There'll be someone.
One of the things that I think would take, from a safety point of view, one of the things that I've found that they do, they wanted to put these wood beams up on the roof, right, as a aesthetic choice, because it was a panelled roof and they wanted to paint it white and then put the beam up. And I was like, it's already a wood panel roof, why don't you just leave it? And then you've got the wood that you want. But no, they've painted it white, which I don't understand, but they've done that. But then they wanted to put these beams up and have the chandelier coming down from that. Okay, well, for starters, if you have a wood beam, your chandelier can't come off the wood beam directly, normally, because you can't run the cabling through the beam without compromising the beam.
Mm-hmm. It's awkward, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
It's awkward.
So they got a fake beam. It's made out of foam. So the cables run inside the beam, because it's a foam beam, but then the chandelier is attached in a way that makes it look like it's attached directly to the beam. And can I tell you, as a if I bought that house not realizing that was a foam beam, and I got up there and the beam crumbled under my hand, I'd be petrified.
Yeah.
Like, what have you done?
Do you know what my first thought if a chandelier dropped would be? This house is haunted.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great.
But there's so many of them that are doing it themselves now.
Yes.
And I applaud every effort to do it yourself, but I really think that there's certain things that should only be done by professionals.
Absolutely.
Like your water, especially your electricity.
Oh man,
don't be fiddling with that shit.
Do not touch. Do not think that you know best with electricity.
Get a licensed electrician, please.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few of those at the moment, and I see the TikTok memes from the electricians, and they're like, so who did you say did all this work down here? And my grandson Carl did it. Oh yeah, when did his house burn down? A year ago. How did you know it burned down?
And even some digging, like if you're digging to do big renovations and landscaping as well. There is
there's the look up or dig hotline in Australia where you can check and see whether you've got cables or pipes running through in those areas. And you should always do that. Please always do that.
Dial before you dig. That's it. I was like, oh, what is that thing? Yeah.
Dial before you dig,
Yeah. And look up and live is for electricity as well. They've got an app now for both. So you can actually see one colour is all where the electricity is going, and then the other colour is where all the piping and
I do have to say, though, that the older your property is, the more you have to be careful, even when you do the dial-a-dig or look up and live, but mostly dial-a-dig.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I've got at the moment is that all of the planning surveys for the block of land that I have at the moment have the sewer line running dead smack center of the block, like right down the middle of the block.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're going to have to do this foundation bridge and everything. And when we actually got someone out to do the survey to check where the sewer line is specifically so that they can do the engineering for the bridging of the foundation, it runs down the side of the block.
Oh.
So where the house is being built, there's no line. Like, it's not a problem. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But
it just was wrong.
Yeah, the plan is
initially.
wrong.
Yeah.
So absolutely do the dial-a-dig, but just remember that the older your property is, and especially if it's like mine where it's been subdivided off of a larger block like it was for a larger block at one point in time, when they've put it all in, those were estimates to start with.
Yeah.
And so they're still estimates now. It's now an accurate measurement because I've had it surveyed.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that the older it is, the more likely it is to be an estimate, and you have to build with some variables.
Yeah. It's a really good tip because, you don't want to go into anything like that half-cocked.
No.
You really need to do some research and you need to and I know everything costs, like...
Nothing is more expensive than your life, though, so...
Yeah, so what's the way up here?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And I think Taja can speak from experience. When building a house, there's not one thing that you can't not pay for to get it to where you need it to be.
Yeah.
And all the planning and everything.
And there's a lot of compromises that you got to make along the way because there's certain things that you wanted when you started and then you look at the bill and you go, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's better to be completely informed than sort of half informed and half in the dark and kind of hoping for the best. You don't want to go out on whimsy. That's horrible.
No, not on projects like that.
No.
You want to know, at the very least, you want to know that you're working with people you can trust. That are going to communicate issues with you and that will work with you to resolve them in a way that's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Or be within your budget.
Basically,
that they'll find a way. You might have to take away from other things in your budget.
Yes.
To do that, but
you need the proper people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of the proper people, Bob the Builder.
No.
We'll end on him. That's okay. He's been running for a while.
Is he still running?
Yeah.
What?
Hang on. Just let me check the date. Or Tasha can check the date.
She said that now.
I know. I will retract what I just said if it's wrong. But there's been a couple of iterations of Bob the Builder. Massive for young boys.
Holy shit balls. He's been going for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
20 seasons. Bob the Builder from 1999. Yeah, well, that would explain why I didn't really watch him. He looks like a Lego man. Just a bit rounder.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There'll be a link in the show notes to a picture of him for those that don't know what Bob the Builder is or here in this dead space right now.
I love the fact that you can currently watch him on YouTube for $10 or Google Play Movies and TV, which is essentially just another version of YouTube, for $10.
Okay, take your pick.
Bob the Builder Project Build It.
You're struggling to get that out.
Yeah, because my brain went...
Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder is a British animated children's series.
Yes. Ultra big. Not necessarily with me. I sort of left the room. My brother really enjoyed it. Got a lot out of it. Because there started to actually be, from my brother's generation, especially, a big influx of that generation going into trade?
It finished in 2017 by all of this.
Okay.
But there's 50 episodes a season. Holy shit.
I mean, when you've got to build something and you've got to fix it, make sure it's fixed.
50 episodes a season.
Bob's got a lot to say.
And 20 seasons. Heck.
You still sound so...
I am. It's so much. Oh my god.
I know. So, at the start when it started, what a good sentence.
English.
Bob, the builder of the show, it tended to be male skewed. So, very male skewed, to the point that it actually had a character called Wendy, but Wendy couldn't go out on the job site, or what will I say here? She'd hardly go out on the job site. Which
has changed.
It's changed.
She's now electric.
Yeah.
She does all the electrical work.
Yeah. So
did it change before or after they got married? Because according to this, when they started, she was part of the team, but not
in the office doing the accounts.
Yeah, and now Wendy is Bob's building partner and later his wife, and she now plays a central role on the team. Her general building skills mean that she's very hands-on and has her own specific job on every build. Her specialty is electrics.
So helps with, like what Taja said, with all the projects, and has a place of authority like the mayor of the town. So how cool is that?
I'm still trying to get over the fact that there's entire wiki articles on their relationship. Like, who is this involved in an animated series? And then I think about, like, anime, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, don't even question.
There's even rumours about, like, her cheating on him or something.
My God.
Like, it's an animated series. Calm down.
For children. So hold on a minute.
This is insane.
But the show's aesthetics and the moral defining stories have a large influence on the children, which not only entertain them but helps them learn. It teaches them valuable lessons at a young age and is important with that target audience of my brother's generation. So my brother's 5 years younger than me. He's born in 1991. That it needed to be entertaining and educational, but also about cooperation and resolving problems, especially when building things. So it was, it had diggers and it had like all the different
sorry, I'm still getting into the wiki here.
Excavators, and they all had names as well. And
Dizzy was female. I've just read that. Dizzy, the concrete mixer, was female in everything but the Romanian and Slovakian series in which she was male.
Oh, okay. Handy little tidbit.
Weird. There's so much of this is weird.
I don't know whether we get into that.
No, I mean like the
wiki.
The weird things in here that for some reason need to be recorded.
So the show was designed to teach children about teamwork and friendship before they went to school in order to make it easier for children to socialise and help them integrate better. The show also inspires children to build. So that was a big part of it too. Like, you could get out there and build with your Legos, building, and it's teaching them that you can use your imagination, not necessarily for like construction and building a house or a building. I
just realised why my mum never wanted us to watch it, because my brother and I, like my brother being much older than me, he wouldn't have watched it anyway, but we probably wouldn't have been the kids that went, we could play with our Legos. We would have been the kids that went, where's Dad's hammer?
You're Tim Taylor. That's who you are. In the scenario. So it was also inspired them to build, like I said, unleashing their imagination to build anything they can and want. This helps with children in school when they went to play. It helps them be more creative. It then sort of went on to say about how Bob had such a can-do attitude as well.
Yeah. I think even as a kid, he was a bit too bubbly for me.
Yeah, it's not Taj's type of person. I don't think you'd be friends with Bob.
It does make me wonder how I'm friends with a few of my friends, including you, though, because I'm like, we could not be more opposite on certain aspects of our personality if we tried.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. But maybe that's what makes things work. If we're too similar, it'd be weird.
Or we'd just sit in silence next to each other and just be like,
Overall, Bob the Builder was a massive influence. And I mean, yes, it was for children, but much like Home Improvement, it taught kids and it showed an aspect and can be aspirational for a whole generation to go, actually, I want to be a tradie.
Yeah. And like it came along, it was done in the same sort of style as like Postman Pat and Fireman Sam.
Stop motiony, then went to CGI a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But
and,
yes.
Fireman Sam was started in the 1980s as a safety show for mostly British kids, but Australian kids got it a lot too.
I love Fireman Sam. It was the best.
Fireman Sam, and he was all about teaching people like fire safety. Yeah. So things like electrical fires, what to do in a fire, all of that sort of stuff. And there was seasons and seasons of that because he was from the 1980s up until I think 2017 as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Postman Pat just had a little black and white cat. He was my favourite.
We both like cats.
Postman Pat.
Yeah, so very educational, very bright, but also it went down that whole thing of being safe while doing the job. So as much as, yes, it was brightly coloured like all kids shows generally are, and it had a catchy theme tune, and it doesn't matter, maybe except for you're the exception, Bob the Builder. There'll be someone in the room that will go, can we fix it? Yes, we can.
There'll be two people in the room. Someone will scream out, can we fix it? Someone else will scream out, yes, we can. And then there'll be the third person in the room sitting in the corner, glaring over their cup of coffee going, it's too early for your shit, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Did I just describe our old workplace pretty much on top?
A little bit. Yeah, so you sort of think, you sort of shrug some of these shows off and go, it's just a kid's show. But I look at now at my brother's generation and his friends, all of them except Jared are a tradie. So that says a lot.
Is that causation or correlation?
Well, I don't know. I don't know when it skews towards the most, but they all saw that show. They all watched that show.
Yes.
They watched and grew up with Home Improvement as well.
Yes.
So, in amongst a whole bunch of other things, I'm not saying these are both the two main things that influenced them into being tradies and being very good at their jobs. We've had most of them come and do jobs for us at our house, but there's got to be something in the way of teaching them at a young age with Bob and Wendy and all that goes
on.
on.
Subconscious ideal.
Yeah, and if you've got 50 episodes
per season for 20 years,
you're definitely going to influence and hopefully leave something with the kids, like that they can take away beyond the colours and just the catchy theme tune.
And Dizzy, the cement mixer.
Yeah, and Dizzy, the cement mixer. But yeah, I think they're both great shows, as much as I didn't really get into Bob as much. a bit older than Jared, so yeah, I sort of left and did other things, waiting for Sailor Moon to come on or something. But something after that.
She was dangerous too.
But
for a whole different reason.
And I know this is a bit of a, kind of
tangent,
different to what we normally talk about in the way of safety, but I just think that sometimes a lot of what we learn, or a lot of the time is what we learn, is from entertainment industry, movies, TV shows, music.
Yeah, I think they had more of an impact on sort of our generation and the generation after us than they did on the generation before in regards to those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Purely and simply on the fact that we were sort of the first generation where both parents were constantly out of the house working.
Yeah.
Or something like, I will never ever get over the fact that America specifically ran an ad at 10 p.m. every night to remind parents that they had children. And do you know where they are?
Oh, I need to see this ad.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Okay.
They had celebrity guest talkers and everything. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
But this is the this is the thing.
So it's like it was that first generation where like media had a big influence on us because we were often left to be raised by media. Both of my parents worked, and like I'm not saying there was anything bad. Both of my parents were still very present parents. Like if we had sport activities or we had family things, dinner was often spent around the table talking to each other, all of that sort of stuff. But there was definitely more of a presence of like TV and media in mine and my brother's life than there in our childhoods than there was in my mother's or my father's, because it just wasn't as big a thing. Like it was still very expensive for them to buy TVs when they were kids.
Yeah.
So,
my mum went to the next door neighbours.
Yeah. Watched TV over there. Yeah.
Couldn't afford a TV.
My mum spent some of her childhood in Papua New Guinea with no TV at all. So,
Yeah, wow. Okay, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah. Well, my uncle was a builder. Her father was a builder and he had a contract over there. So that's where they were for a while.
Exactly.
I don't think they got a TV until they moved back to Queensland and were living on the Gold Coast.
That's just how it was.
Yeah, so she would
Pretty
have been
normal.
Teens, early teens.
Yeah. Yeah, you were pretty rich when you had a TV back then. Or especially with...
Or you were like well connected.
Well, yeah.
And managed to know someone who could get you a deal.
Yeah.
It fell off the back of a truck.
But yeah, you're right. Latchkey kids that we are, heavily sort of relied on being influenced by how we do friendships, how we work together, how we collaborate using our imagination, and also the safety aspects of day-to-day lives in general comes from a lot of media.
Yep.
And, we could talk about a lot of other shows, but I thought I'd pick two sort of opposite ends of the spectrum.
I like seeing where it goes now, like what we're sort of doing with those skills now, because the other part of being a latchkey kid is that you weren't shown as many skills by your parents as previous generations were, and that's become a whole topic out in media at the moment as well, is the amount of millennials and like late Gen X to millennials that are actually taking classes to learn certain skills so that they can DIY safely. There's a bunch of people that are learning classes on car maintenance, on doing certain building projects at home, on all of those sort of things, like just weekend courses to do it. And some boomer somewhere, has had to make the comment of, oh look, they can't even know these basic skills, and someone has of course then immediately clapped back with, or nobody taught us. And I've had that discussion with my own father, because he gets really frustrated at people on the road not knowing what certain signals mean, because there's certain things you do when you're out on the road, like headlight flashes to let people know that there's a speed camera up ahead, or there's certain indicator tricks that they use to let people know it's safe to pass trucks. That is being discouraged, especially on sort of regional roads. They don't want truckies doing that because it can still become dangerous if someone else comes around a corner at great speeds. But these are things that were never taught, and he said it one weekend after having a very frustrating ride home, apparently. And he was very frustrated in the fact that they'd given these signals out and nobody did anything with them. And he's like, it was a couple of young kids who didn't even know what these meant, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, I don't know what they mean. You've never told me what that means. Like, how do you know they've been told? Like, we don't know by osmosis. It didn't just implant itself in my brain. I know that there's been a great discussion about, hereditary memories and everything like that, but that's not how that is.
No.
So, and you've never told me, so I'd be the same as that idiot following you.
You're an idiot.
And he didn't, typical response to that. I'm sure I've told you. Well, no, you haven't.
No, because I would have known, and I'm telling you, don't know. And that's the thing. You're right. There's Bunnings.
Yep, they've got their DIY.
They've got all their DIY classes, and they're full all the time. There's not a time, whenever I've been in there, seem to be full. And it's a lot of basics.
But even Spotlight has been running basic DIY stuff for years.
Yeah.
They've had their sewing classes and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Macrame classes. There's a lot of it out there.
Yeah. So I guess in conclusion to this episode that was, because it's coming up to time, or it's almost time for us to say goodbye. In conclusion to all this, I guess my question to the audience is have a little think about what you grew up with, watching, seeing, beyond your parents, beyond family, beyond that, like in the media. What shows did you watch? What movies did you watch? What do you remember from them that you think, oh my gosh, that actually taught me not to do that thing? That taught me...
It gave me an inherent sense of hesitation to do that thing.
Yeah, and it could even be about drinking safely, conscious drinking.
Oh, or the ad campaigns. Like there was that, the one, I think it was the best performing campaign they had against speeding or bad or reckless behavior in cars was that campaign I think it was the 2010s where they're like,
oh yeah.
I loved that ad campaign.
It was so good. If we can find it, we'll put it somewhere.
They're just wiggling their little pinky like, all right, big boy.
Yeah. But yeah, what's influenced you and how you think about the risk with certain aspects of your life now? Because I know I think about a lot of home improvement situations.
Do you?
I do. Well,
I can't say that I think about it consciously.
There's just...
Unless someone does something that reminds me of it, and then I'm like, oh my God.
But yeah, there's just different things that you can kind of go, okay, well, that taught me about excessive drinking. That taught me about whatever the thing is. And have a little think, and you might be surprised.
You know what taught me about excessive drinking?
What?
Excessive drinking. It's alright, it only took me once to figure it out.
Well, there you go. But yeah, so much influences us, especially being, latchkey kids. But it'd be interesting to sort of find out future generations after us, what was something pivotal that you go, that really was just a cartoon I watched, or, just a show that you watched when you were younger. And then, I did learn something from that. Beyond the colours, beyond the catchy theme tunes or the alphabet, or...
The theme tunes that stick with you even into adulthood, where you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they go flushing around in your head.
Yeah.
But yes, have a little think, because if you come up with anything, we'd love to hear from you. In the comments.
Or on our email.
Yeah.
Email listed in the description.
Yeah. I'd love to hear it. So...
And if you have any ideas for future shows, we'd love to hear that too.
Yeah. 5 stars. I'll say it again.
All right, Carl.
5 stars. We'd love to hear from you, or rate us. That'd be great too.
Love to hear it. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.